Up to now, I haven't addressed the coronavirus because I've frankly been sick of it for a while. Now, when I say I'm sick of it, that doesn't mean I'm sick with it, at least as far as I know. But what is there really to say about it? This is what I was thinking, and this is what I still think. I mean, we had the hysteria about, what was it, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, about SARS, and then there was the swine flu, and then maybe 4 or 5 years ago there was all this talk about Ebola spreading like wildfire, and now this. Now, that is not to say that just because all of these prior hysterias about disease outbreaks turned out to be misfires, more or less, which is to say that none of them really became global pandemics the way that a lot of people were talking about how they would be. That doesn't mean that coronavirus isn't different, that it might indeed become something that affects the entire world, and people are keeling over from left and right. But I do have to note that according to their statistics, the death rate is still very low. Now, compared to other diseases like the flu, I know that the death rate is still, relatively speaking, rather high. But what, 1 to 2% die from it of everybody who gets it. Now, that's not to in any way minimize the sorrow over those who have lost loved ones, or the fear that people might have about losing loved ones. But just like with flu, and I'm not a epidemiologist by any stretch, but I do know enough to know that like with the flu and with other viruses, that those who are more likely to die from it are those who are already weak as far as their immune systems go, whose health is compromised in other ways. And again, not to minimize the deaths, but it's just another way of saying that the 1 or 2% that we hear, we're talking about a specific group of people who need to be more concerned than the average healthy citizen, let's just say, who will probably not get the coronavirus, and even if he does get the coronavirus, will in all likelihood survive it, just like he survives the flu. It's not a pleasant thing, but it passes most of the time. Now, already what I've said in the last 3 minutes or so has probably triggered some people and triggered some misunderstandings, misapprehensions, and people are going to say things. People are going to get offended and say stuff. I want to add that I don't really, truly have a take per se on the coronavirus. If I have a take in any way, I'm personally allergic to alarmism. I know there's plenty to be alarmed about, but it seems that disease outbreaks are a way of really tripping this wire of alarmism, because the idea of infection, it's like on a primordial level, it triggers some fears in us, so in a way, I just kind of want to remove my mind from the entire contemplation of this entire thing, because mere contemplation of it seems to invite indulgence in hysteria over it. Either that or the opposite. The opposite kind of thing that it tends to invite is, similarly speaking, another kind of hysteria. And it is what some people say, and I don't have a problem with people believing this, but when they say it with such surety that I'm really kind of put off. And what I'm talking about are the people who say that it's all just a hoax, that there is no real disease, or this is something that's just being used to sell us a bill of goods. It's being whipped up to create fear and to create this kind of atmosphere whereby they can control us, more readily. I'm not saying that's impossible. I'm not saying there's no way that could be true, but I'm really put off by, I think it's something that's just, I should just not be on the internet as much. Or maybe I just shouldn't read YouTube comments, or comments on articles, or just, comments in general from people out there, because there's so many people speaking with such assurance, like they just know the truth. They either know that this is the great plague that will kill us all and usher in the apocalypse, or they just know with full confidence that this is all a hoax and a scam used by Big Brother to get us even further enmeshed in their web of tyranny. Now, I don't know the truth about any. I don't know what the truth is about the coronavirus. I do know that there's reason to be concerned, but that I don't think it's helpful to be alarmed, or to spread alarmism of any kind, one way or the other. One reason why I mean, the whole thing about, well, they're going to use this to control us even more. Look, the they that we're talking about are the globalists, right? And we didn't even start talking about globalists until something like 4 or 5 years ago. So in a way, I'm kind of wary of the term globalist, but I'm using it, advisedly here, to mean the certain type of controller or would-be controller out there. I fail to understand how a mass outbreak of a deadly disease is working in the favor of those who want to erode the sovereignty of individual nations. If anything, it would seem that the outbreak of a mass pandemic would cause people to be more interested in protecting borders, in keeping their countries safe from the infection, relatively speaking, as however much that can be done. So it seems to be at cross purposes with the intentions of globalists if the coronavirus is either being used to further their control matrix, or if it's all a hoax in some way being used by them. There's just a lot of contradiction. There's a lot of people speaking with utter conviction about things that I don't think anybody could know or can know, unless they have access to things that I don't have access to. And I'm sure some people do, and some people understand more than I understand. I readily admit that, but all of everything I say here, I think still holds, still applies, still is valid. Now, what has finally provoked me to talk about this subject is something that I do find quite astonishing, and I am rather disquieted by. And that is the news that in Rome, and I think in maybe much of Italy, there are, for the next 3 or 4 weeks until April the 3rd, there are going to be no public masses held because of fear of the coronavirus, fear of it spreading. I find this really, more than anything else I've ever heard about the disease, I find this news to be incredibly disquieting. Speaking, of course, as a Catholic, speaking as somebody, I don't go around loudly proclaiming myself to be the embodiment of Catholic perfection. I know that I am not. I know that, I struggle with faith much of the time, but there is something to me about the headquarters of the Catholic and Universal Church deciding that there will be no public masses held. The Mass is the sacrifice of Jesus. The Mass is the means by which our sins are forgiven us fully in Catholic doctrine and belief. That they would just completely halt the celebration of public masses. Private masses can still be said, but that in the Holy City itself, in Vatican City, and I know there's a lot of corruption in Vatican City. I call it the Holy City with some irony, but nevertheless, it is the origin, the headquarters of the entirety of the faith. That they would, in the headquarters of the faith itself, that they would suspend the celebration of Mass. Just that all just really shakes me and disquiets me and disturbs me in a way that I think it would do all those things to me even if I weren't Catholic, frankly. I don't know what it means, but it's certainly bad optics, right? In a way, because it's sort of this, it is almost this admission of defeat. It's this gesture of having given in, of saying we need to stop doing what is necessary for our souls because we fear this disease. And this is the event that has really pushed me to finally broach this subject. So let me know what you think, I guess. Have a comment or have an idea that's not just like the ones that I've been lampooning for the last few minutes. That's all I ask. But, I am interested in hearing people's informed and thoughtful thoughts about this subject. Thanks for watching. My name's Andy Nowicki. You can check out my work at altrightnovelist.com or lowstatusnovelist.blogspot.com.